everyone, and welcome to my podcast, Hellman Talk. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to someone who's young, ambitious, and working on very exciting projects. Today, the person that I'm speaking to is Vincent de Merlo. Welcome, Vincent.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, Vincent, very briefly about you. You're Spanish, Swiss, Canadian, and you started studying in Elie, and you also studied in a Chinese university during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You started working in consulting, and then you moved to media, which is where you're now working for Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of this, I know that you're very active. You are working with startups and you're doing lots of sports. And today I'm very excited because we're going to cover a little bit about your career journey, your transition from consulting to media,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit how you see the future of media. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Something that I wanted to start with today was your time in IE, which is a very famous university in Spain. And I know that there you were very active. You were involved in many clubs, like the economics club, the politics club, TEDx. How were you balancing your academics with all these extracurriculars?
Always from a very young age, I was very much focused on wanting to be the best I could so I could go to a really good universities.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow when I was very little, that idea got really ingrained in my head, and I thought, okay, I have to really excel, I have to really pack my time to the max to be able to get into the best places. And that, I guess, kind of shaped or paved the way towards my time management skills. So already when I got to university, I already had a very clear idea that I wanted to earn as much as I could, and also try to have as many experiences as possible, so that when the time came that I would graduate, I would have a good idea of what I wanted to do. And that involved being involved in consulting club, and as you mentioned.
So you use kind of the clubs to help you figure out what you wanted to do in the future?
For sure. And I think that's something that I've told lots of people that are in university right now, or when I've done alumni talks or whatever. And I think one of the main advice I usually give, if I could give any advice at my young age, is to take advantage as much as you can by being as engaged and active as possible in academic life, which means clubs, sports, and activities. Because this, at the end, as you said, in my opinion, is what helps you or shapes your opinion of what you may like and what you may not like on a professional and on a personal
and then
level.
You expand your network also, which is
for sure, 100%. Actually, lots of my friends, their network was kind of limited to the people in class, right? And I often knew people from all over university, and often my friends are like, "How do you even know these people?" And it's always because of clubs and activities, which is the best way of getting to know really all the max amount of people in your university, and really take advantage of the network, especially of a place like IE, which gives you a really valuable network, and it really allows you to capitalize on it.
Do you have any tips for how you manage your time to fit everything in one day or in 1 week, whenever you were doing these things?
Well, I love doing lists.
Yeah.
I love writing by hand, lists of to-dos and tasks. And I think that really helps me in categorizing a little the things I have to do during the day, and in prioritizing tasks. Being also realistic of what you can do and what you cannot do in terms of time and energy. I have gotten to the point in which I overestimated my time management skills or my energy capacity, and I would just saturate myself with clubs, activities, and initiatives to the point that I had to cut down or something, because at the end you can't give fully your 100% if you're so widely spread out, right? So you have to prioritize, know yourself, know your limits, and then organize accordingly.
Yeah, that's something that I like. I love doing lists as well.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of lists on my notes.
Yeah.
But it's a good reminder to kind of prioritize, be realistic, as you said. What are the things that I can do? And okay, that sounds very interesting. And after IE, you then started working in consulting. When you look back at your early projects when you were working in EY, is there something that you wish that you had known back then?
Yeah, I think just overall more robust like financial knowledge, you know. I think it's important that either universities implement more practical approaches to learning about corporate finance in a way that they're more ready once they get into these companies, or I would encourage you know, people that are thinking of getting into corporate finance that besides what they learn in university, start doing already courses on the side on, I don't know, online platforms or clubs or whatever, to learn as much as they can.
So in terms of technical skills, maybe that could be one, like the financial knowledge.
Mhm.
But when you think about either both soft skills and hard skills, according to your experience, do you have a particular view of what's the best way for consultants to stand out and succeed in that industry?
Mhm. Well, I think it's definitely like the way we treat with the people, right? Like the human factor of it. I think in corporate finance, consulting, and also other sectors alike, once you enter the professional world, you have to be ready to deal with people of, you know, all types of characters and profiles and professional levels, right? I think coming out of university, we're a little bit like emotionally immature in that sense that that we're not ready for what's coming in terms of dealing with different stakeholders, whether it's colleagues, bosses, clients, and on a psychological aspect, I think it's super valuable to be able to adapt to different types of people, right? And to be able to deal with different types of people. And I think there's a big element of success in that regard, in being able to connect and click with different types of people, regardless of your rank and regardless of your sector. I think at the moment you connect with somebody, I think half of your work is already done.
Yeah, I really like that because I think that in the end, we're all people. I think that having those people skills, it can be very, very helpful. Yeah. And so I know that you then worked in consulting for for some time.
Yeah.
And then you decided to move to media. But now you're in Disney.
Mhm.
How is it to work in Disney? Because I feel like from the outside, at least, it sounds super exciting because, yeah, it sounds like a really fun company.
Yeah, it really is. It's a dream house, you know,
Yeah.
a factory dream house, and I mean the offices in and of itself are really exciting, right? They're all like designed and this whole like Disney, all the Disney characters and the whole Disney World kind of a universe, and it's really exciting also as a company. Everybody's like super engaged, super excited. In my role, I get to like analyze the different shows and how their performance is. You know, like are the different series that we're launching or movies that we're launching, are they reaching the targets that we've put for them, like the goals in terms of subscribers, in terms of, you know, streams? So really exciting stuff. If you get to work on all these things that many people see as just, you know, as entertainment, right? And to make it your job, I think for me is like a dream, right?
That's nice. And because you were talking about forecasting, how is there a way that you can forecast if a show that you have in Disney is going to succeed versus not?
It's the $1 million question. It's really hard, and it's often a hit and miss, right? It's very difficult sometimes to get it right because there's so many factors involved in the success of a show or a movie, right? Sometimes like you underestimate, and sometimes you overestimate the success of a title. So I think it's still a work in progress. I think for the whole sector, I think everybody's trying to figure it out. The whole world of streaming is a relatively new, you know, relatively young, and there's still a lot to learn, and we're all kind of, you know, doing it together.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's nice.
yeah.
And from what I understand, is that in your role, you're looking a lot into the data.
Mhm.
What interesting things are you finding out about how people, like me, for example, use Disney Plus?
Well, it's actually super interesting
Yeah.
because we get really detailed analytical data on all these like statistics of how people are watching, how people are consuming, how people are engaging with the platform and with the content. We get to see different demographics, right? So it's very interesting to see the type of people that consume it. Also, categorizing them on what type of of genres or of themes they like to consume. Also, when people enter into watching different movies or shows, how much time do they spend watching these shows? Like, is there a bigger affinity for a certain type of shows with a certain type of cast, right? Are certain actors driving the engagement? So there's so many data points that we look at.
Do you see any interesting patterns?
Oof, well, there's lots of very interesting patterns. I think one pattern, for example, is, well, right now in Madrid, we've been having lots of rain, and we're seeing an uptick in subscriptions in the platform,
Interesting.
right? We have worse weather. People are staying more at home, so people subscribe more, right? We also had a puente, right, recently, which is like a festivity, and we see an uptick in subscriptions as well because of these festivities. Kids are at home, so more time to consume this content, more a bigger reason to sign up to these platforms. So very interesting psychological and sociological aspects, as well as of how human beings behave, and how we can try and study that and bring it to our business, right?
I think it was quite interesting what you mentioned about the rain, because the assumption that I'm going to say, let me know if this is right or not, but and then in countries where it's worse weather, like England, for example, or the Nordics, do you think that then people watch more like Netflix, does Disney, compared to countries that have more sun, like Spain, France? Is that a thing or not really?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer. I would have to look into the data. But that's a really interesting hypothesis. And actually, I think tomorrow, first thing in the morning, I'm actually going to check that. It is true that also it's a bit sometimes difficult to compare apples to apples and like pears to pears, because the UK is a very big and mature market in terms of media and entertainment consumption, versus the Mediterranean countries.
I understand what you mentioned about that it's not apples to apples, but I feel like in your industry there's so much competition. And what is Disney doing to kind of stay ahead? And what do you see is like the biggest challenge to retain as many subscribers as possible? Because we have Netflix, HBO, Amazon Prime.
That's also the other $1 million question. How do we differentiate ourselves in a world of, so many options, right? I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the content. There's, lots of initiatives in trying to improve conversion rate on the billing page, or on, improving engagement in terms of like the algorithm or whatever. But I personally think that if the product is not up to par, if the actual content is not attractive, at the end of the day, you're not going to retain subscribers. And I think Disney is doing a really great job in identifying what are the pain points, what content works, what content doesn't work, and what insights can we draw from that, right? In terms of making more attractive and interesting original productions, and how can we really draw people to a more differentiated content proposition for our subscribers.
I personally don't have Disney myself.
Okay.
But if you had to convince, if you had to convince me or someone who's listening to get Disney Plus, I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but do you have like a 30-second pitch that you would tell us?
Yeah, sure. I think Disney has the most diverse and most complete content library out of all competitors, right? Often people identify or associate Disney with kids' content, but people often forget that Disney includes 20th Century Studios, so one of the main blockbuster Hollywood studios, which have produced titles like Alien Romulus recently. Also Searchlight Studios, which is an independent studio that has produced movies like Poor Things by Yorgos Lanthimos, so pure like independent cinema. And then we have also, of course, the whole library of animated studios, from Pixar to Walt Disney Studios, and also, of course, the worlds of Lucasfilms and Marvel, right? So it's a really wide-reaching content library that attracts a very wide range of subscribers. I think it's unparalleled in terms of the quality versus other platforms, and I think there's something for everybody. So I think that is why Disney should be and is always as the top 3 choices in terms of platforms.
Is there one particular show that you would recommend everybody to watch?
Oof, that is so difficult. I could give you a whole list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think maybe one that comes to mind recently is Shogun, which is within also, this comes from, Hulu, FX, within also Disney Plus. We also have also the content from Hulu and FX. And Shogun is an amazing show, but I could give you a full list by studio, by
Yeah.
genre.
Okay.
I could never end.
Okay, nice. You can tell me later.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it sounds like it's super exciting what you're doing in Disney. If we kind of zoom out a bit and think about the media and entertainment business as a whole, how do you think the streaming services are evolving?
So yeah, that's something that's being talked about constantly in media entertainment and in Hollywood. I think we're definitely seeing that shift from cable and network and traditional TV towards streaming and everything within streaming. Cable and network TV is still bringing cash, and it is still a business that is still within the portfolios of these companies. But many companies that have been overexposed to their network TV divisions or cable TV divisions, such as Warner Discovery or like Paramount and stuff, they've seen themselves penalized, right, financially. They've suffered quite a bit. And companies such as Disney that started investing very early on heavily on streaming and have moved away more from their network and cable business lines have seen themselves grow and see some benefit in terms of the streaming platform driving the growth of Disney as a whole. So I think that really the war and the game is going to be more in what risks are each company going to take? How is each company going to deal with their portfolio of businesses in terms of network TV and streaming? And how are they going to do that mix? And how are they going to do that transition in the most profitable way possible? Right? It's a really very very active and very energetic sector, really exciting. And I think the next 5 years is going to be super key in terms of evolution and seeing how everything plays out.
And what do you think is going to happen to cinemas and TVs? Because I love going to the cinema myself, but it's true that I go less and less. And TVs, for example, in my apartment where I live, I don't have a TV.
Well, I mean, that happens. Lots of people are now moving away from actually buying TVs because I think consumption habits are shifting in terms of how people consume media and entertainment. We have lots of people consuming most of their element of news or entertainment through social media, especially like TikTok or Instagram, and less people I think are consuming news and entertainment through traditional channels such as television and stuff. So I think there's definitely a change in that regard. I think studios and cinemas are going to have to rethink how they attract people to the cinemas again. Since COVID happened, we've seen a sharp decline in terms of the number of people that go to the cinemas. But now we're seeing recently some hopeful and positive news in terms of people slowly getting back to the movies. We see certain trends and people go more to the movies to see certain types of genres, like maybe comedy, horror, things that have a more of a communal experience. But still, the whole industry is still trying to bring back the audiences back into the cinemas. In fact, recently, Sean Baker won 5 Oscars for Anora in this past Academy Award ceremony. He, in one of his speeches, he called out for the return to cinemas, right?
That's
And the
nice.
importance of consuming movies in the cinemas, that there's no greater experience than living these stories, living these emotions and these feelings as part of an audience, right? The whole human experience of living stories with other people, right? And I think that's super important. I hope and I think that cinemas will never die. I think they will just change. I think we will just change how we consume it.
It's a very nice message from, I don't remember.
Sean Baker.
From
Yeah.
Sean Baker. It's a very nice message of him. And something that I was actually curious is, do you think, is it possible that Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, that they would create a cinema version, or is it not really profitable?
It's that's a bit tough because Netflix right now their stance is kind of against cinemas, right? The titles they release get released on the platform, right? They don't see a vision in terms of launching titles, launching movies in the cinemas, and then having that gap of time until it's launched on the platform. Whereas Disney, for example, Disney Plus, we do have, we launch titles first in the cinemas. For example, A Complete Unknown or A Real Pain, movies that were now nominated in the past Oscar ceremony. Will be eventually launched on the platform in due time, right? And I think there's kind of these two opposing views in terms of what do we do? Do we launch our movies first in the cinemas and then in the platforms, or directly in the platforms? We've seen various, I think, results in terms of how people engage with that. But looks like Netflix is for now keeping their stand on first releasing their movies and shows on first on the platform and sometimes not at all in movies. That may change because Netflix often, changes their strategy according to what the sector or what the market wants. And we that may change. And in fact, this speech that I just mentioned of Sean Baker, I think it was also kind of like a wink towards platforms like Netflix that are kind of keeping a stand on and that may be affecting a little bit the cinema industry. But who knows? We'll see how that happens. In terms of a business model, I think we're still going to see platforms, traditional studio platforms such as Disney, Paramount, and of the sort, first launching movies in the cinemas and then on the platforms.
Well, it sounds super interesting what's going to happen to the cinemas in the future. So it will be interesting to see. Something, if we think also about the future, that I'm actually very interested in is AI. Like, I know that AI is shaping so many different industries, and I'd be curious to understand how you think that AI is going to change your industry, because I know that now there's a lot of ads that, for example, are being generated with AI.
Mhm.
Do you think that there will be movies in the future generated by AI?
Yes, in fact, it's already happened, and that's a really good question because again, in this industry, you have from the bottom everybody involved in the actual technical and talent element of filmmaking, very much against AI, right, and the use of AI because there's a big fear that AI will take away, first of all, the jobs of many of these people that work in filmmaking, especially the talent in and of itself, and also there's a fear of the loss of authenticity, right? What makes filmmaking, so special is that it's art, right? And art is made by humans, right? Like filmmaking is there's nothing more human, right? Than stories, right? Stories that have been created by us, shaped by us, and which talk about human stories, right? And I think from more higher spheres of the industry, in terms of production companies and studios and stuff, I think they are a little bit more interested in the idea. I think they're flirting a bit with the idea of how AI can help their business and make them a little and help them in terms of creating more profitable content. But I think we're still at very early stages, and I think it's very difficult to tell still if AI will end up taking that center stage in terms of storytelling and filmmaking. Perhaps it'll just stay limited to just the creation of ads, right, as you said, and it will have a very limited role in the arts, right, in movies and in TV. Maybe it does does get a center stage, and there's some sort of backlash from the industry that makes it go back. We will see again. Also, as I said before, the next 5 years or 10 years, I think, are going to be critical in seeing how this sector shapes.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens to that industry in a couple of years. If somebody would like to get involved in the industry or would like to start working in Disney Plus or Netflix or in any other company like that, do you have any particular advice that you would give them if they wanted to get into that?
Yeah, I mean, my only advice is just like apply. Don't let yourself be intimidated by a sector that seems kind of difficult to get in. It is true that it kind of is difficult. Is that there's not as many jobs that come out on a daily basis for these roles. But really, it all depends of what type of job you want to get into. And I think you can already start preparing yourself to be ready for that job, right? Like if you're looking for like a role that's more in terms of like film production, right? Okay, then start like sign up to a course in film production. Start like bumping up your CV in terms of showing recruiters that you have a passion for this and that you've gone out of your way to prepare yourself for this, right? Or if you want to get into like entertainment law, right? You want to be an entertainment lawyer, or you want to get into finance and entertainment, right? Like get into courses, get into clubs, or get into initiatives yourself, personally, that will show recruiters that you really are passionate about this sector and that you have found the way to prepare yourself. And then from then on, just apply as many times as it takes until you get in, because you will get rejected, 1,000 times, but you will get, probably accepted at least once, right? So I think it's just perseverance and just apply, apply, apply.
Yeah, I think that happens to many jobs that you have to.
I think it applies to, for everything. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so it's been very interesting to hear a little bit your view on the media and entertainment world, and to understand a little bit what you're doing in Disney. But I know that your day-to-day doesn't stop there. You're still very active, and you are very interested in the entrepreneurship business. Like you've invested in a restaurant, you worked with some startups. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And also how you have time to do all these things?
Yeah. I mean, again, as we were saying at the very beginning of the podcast, like I've always been very restless in terms of I've had a sort of obsession in taking advantage of my time, right? I feel like, especially these years at the start of one's career in my 20s that I am in, I think the time is there to take advantage of it, and to do as much as we can with what we have. And yeah, as you said, I invested in a pizza business in the south of Spain of a friend of mine from the program I did between Peking University and IE University. And learning a bit, the day-to-day of what the whole restaurant business is like, learning through him how he manages his business, and hopefully getting a return out of it.
That would be nice.
That would be nice. But also, I also started a production brand with a friend, in which we make short films and we distribute them to film festivals and stuff. So again, that's linked again to my love and passion for filmmaking. Always, of course, thinking of the future of me wanting to get into this sector. So there's always been projects going on. I've always been very restless in terms of wanting to make something that I can do with a team, with other people, that we can call that is ours, and that has some sort of impact, that can actually live beyond ourselves. And I've always had kind of that ambition for that. And yeah, but really, I just always try to find time for that. I guess, as we said at the very beginning, try to prioritize tasks and time, and having to compromise a little bit in terms of free time. But I think at the end, it's worth it, and it's really rewarding.
Yeah. It sounds super interesting. I mean, you mentioned so many different projects that you're working on. Is there one that you feel that you learned the most?
I mean, the production brand, I think, which is called Estudios Metrópoli. I think that one, it really opened my eyes to the day-to-day of actually making a short film, right? Because it was my friend and I, and we basically do everything from writing to pre-production, casting, the actual production, like, right, sound and camera, and then the editing. So like we really do everything. We get to see from start to finish every phase of the creation of a short film. And I've learned so much from that, and of the reality of what it is to make a project like this. It's a very chaotic experience to make a movie. There's 1,000 things will go wrong, and everything goes wrong, and you just have to be like pivoting and finding solutions along the way. But in the end, you finish it, and you've created something that was in your head, and now it's out there for people to see and to enjoy, and it's a really, really rewarding experience.
But yeah, I mean, I can imagine that because now that I started doing this podcast, there's so many things that happen behind the scenes that you didn't even know, and so much work that you put to it.
Yeah.
That, as you say, there's so many things that go wrong, but this is a podcast, a movie. I can imagine that is like times 10
Yeah.
because it's longer, more people. Yeah, a lot of different things that are happening. And so I know that you mentioned earlier free time. I know that even though you have very little free time, you're still very active and you do a lot of sports. And I know that something that you were doing when you were younger also was fencing. And I feel like fencing is such a unique sport that I'm curious to understand what inspired you to start fencing.
Yeah, so actually, it all started really with a couple of friends of mine back in high school that signed up to try fencing, kind of out of nowhere. I really fell in love with the sport. I took it to another level in terms of like competing nationally and stuff, and it was really exciting.
And I feel like fencing is a sport that is not so popular, not so mainstream compared to other sports. Like, I play a lot of tennis, for example.
Yeah.
Is there something that you feel that the fencing community can do to make it a bit more popular so that more people start playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually its charm is in how few people actually do it. It's like
okay. So then maybe you don't want more people.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, for sure. Like every sport needs, more people to do it, so that more people are interested in watching it. Of course, I think fencing has to find a way to attract more people. The thing is that, of course, it's always been like this very mysterious sport that very few people know about it, and it's kind of, as I said, like the why it's so attractive. But I think just showing everybody, because I think many people have the association that fencing is like an artistic kind of, it's not really like a sport, right? Like, but people are just there and it's more like a theater. But it's not, it's a contact sport, in which you actually hurt yourself, like the amount of bruises I would get from the sword, just like pounding on my chest from different games that we would go through. It really is a contact sport, and it's really rigorous. It's a workout, and so I think of if I guess like the fencing community, as you said, would try and market like the workout element to it and like the actual seriousness of the sport to it, and besides that, it's a really attractive sport. It's like very elegant, it's very graceful. It's, I think, a really interesting sport. Just that people have to just do it, and I think it's not as easy as maybe football or whatever, that you don't really need much gear, right? Or like fencing, you have to get like there's
The costume
exactly thing. Right, like you don't have to buy it, right? Oftentimes the club can lend you like the whole costume, right? And like the face masks, exactly, and the sword and all that. But if you want to take it seriously, you have to invest in buying yourself a suit, buying yourself a sword and a face mask and all these things. So it's a gear heavy and investment heavy sport, and that maybe is also kind of a barrier, right, to of entry. But I mean, I encourage everybody to try it out. It's super fun.
Is there something, because, for example, me from playing tennis, there's a lot of things that I think that I've learned through playing tennis that I can then apply into my work and other areas of life. Is there something that you feel that you have like that with fencing?
For sure. I think fencing is extremely mental, right? I think like many individual sports, like tennis, as you mentioned, or other sports, I think like so much of it is really focusing on your mental strength and strategy, right? Like fencing in particular, at least through what I've been able to experience, like there's such a strategic element that you have to always be thinking like many steps ahead, right? Fencing is like chess, but in physical sport, right? You have to have your own plan and how you're gonna get your point. How are you gonna touch the opponent? But within your plan, you have to be ready also for the other person's plan, right? And you have to have to think so many steps ahead and have so many different plans and counter plans towards the opponent's strategy, right? So I think there's a big element of strategy, right? It allows you to develop patience, right? To develop strategic mindset, to think of different paths, of different game plans, of work on resilience, to stick to your plan, right? To not let emotions get you carried away and make you lose focus from what your plan is. Like Nadal, right? As in, I think he's like the king of mental resilience. And the amount of times that we've seen Rafa Nadal come back from a losing streak to all of a sudden rematch to regain his points and end up winning the game. I think this is something you work on and you develop, and it's helped me outside of fencing. I think in my day to day and in work, in terms of mental resilience, strength, and stick to your plan. And if it doesn't work, change it, but don't let yourself get carried away by emotions.
Mm-hmm. I think it's quite interesting that you compared it to chess, because that's a sport that I've heard that it helps you with so many things outside of that it helps you a lot with career and, as you mentioned, strategy, resilience.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite interesting. I'd never thought about fencing like that. So I think that it's been very interesting hearing what you've had to say about like your career, and I think that you're going to do great things. So I'm sure that you'll be able to work on all those projects. So I wish you the best with that.
Thanks, Claudia.
Before we wrap up, I have what we call the rapid questions.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you 5 quick questions, and you have to answer the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, let's see how that goes.
I'm sure you'll do great.
Okay.
The first question I have for you is, what's something that made you smile this week?
Oscars.
Oh, okay.
Yes, for sure. Seeing Anora, an independent film, win so many Oscars and get so much recognition, made me smile, made me really happy, and very hopeful for the industry and its evolution.
Very good. Second question: what's one word that describes you?
Passionate. I put a lot of emotion and like passion and love into lots of the things I do on a personal and a professional level. Like in everything I work in, I really want to put the most of me, and also in terms of my relationships. I'm a big family person. I'm very passionate about who I have around me, and the people around me. So yeah, I guess passion. Yeah,
nice. That's a nice word. Okay, next question is, what's a new language that you would like to learn?
Okay. A programming language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's always been, I think, a kind of like something that's been always on my mind. I learned a bit of like Python, and C+, at IE and at Peking University, but I think it's so relevant and it's so advantageous if you can dominate a programming language. Especially from now on to to the future. I don't know if in my particularly in my career, but I think just being able to control it and understand it, I think can really open lots of very interesting doors.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's a good area to start learning and being a little bit more proficient with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Next question is, what's a new skill that you would like to learn?
I'd say like filmmaking, but properly filmmaking, right? I've touched various areas of filmmaking, right? I did a bit of like sound and the short films. Like, for example, the camera, I don't really dominate the camera, right? Like I'm so envious and I admire people so much that, they can dominate, really know all the aspects of a camera and how to work it. And it's like a bit of like a personal shame, like I love this industry, but I really don't, I don't really dominate the camera, right? I do nice pictures, I do I have my little like picture thing going on, but I would love to have a bigger technical proficiency in filmmaking, right? Especially in camera, but also in editing. I would love to control like the technical aspect more. I, of course, my role or my ideal role is more in production, and more on the logistical side of filmmaking and creating a picture and from the screenwriting to the actual execution. But I would love to have a bigger proficiency in the technical aspects.
Okay, yeah, it's a big world. It's a lot that you can learn.
A lot to learn for sure. Sorry, very ambiguous, very very wide reaching.
No, it's good. It's great. Yeah. Okay, last question is, what's the best advice someone has ever given to you?
I'd say I don't take life too seriously. Maybe. Yeah, I think sometimes this happens to me. Like I give a lot of importance maybe to everything, right? And I just enjoy the day to day, enjoy life and its small things, and don't get caught up too much in the little problems or the problems in general. Just live life to the fullest and don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
I know.
I feel like that's something that actually my parents were telling me earlier,
sure.
but it's a bit tricky, especially as a little bit, I'm a bit similar like you, like you want to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it's a bit tricky, but yeah, it's a good reminder. So I appreciate it.
For sure.
So before we finish up, is there anything else that you want to cover that we haven't touched that you would like to share?
Well, no, just that I'm really excited to see your podcast grow and all the super interesting people that you're interviewing and going to be interviewing. And then, yeah, I'm super grateful for the opportunity to talk on your podcast and to answer your questions. And it really is, it's an honor, and I really enjoyed it so much.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words, Vincent. That's very nice of you. I really appreciate it. And it's been lovely to have you here today, learning a little bit more about your journey and the great things that you're doing. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.